anything that you say from this point forward, people will hear on the replay.
Got it.
Here, let me, I'll tag you on it.
That'd be fabulous.
Yeah, let me tag you. Let's see. Sarah Jane Patton's in the house. All right, there you go. So where are you located?
I am just right outside of St. Louis, about 45 minutes from downtown. I live in a little rural area outside of the city, my little 3 acres.
3 acres. That's cool. Midwest culture. That's a cool culture.
It's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah.
I think they've been a little slow to the I would say the mystics around here.
Well, I think if you talk to most people online in these communities, most of their connections are online.
It's true.
We talk to people all over the world. That's one of the things I ask them. What's it like, out there in the streets? And like, but I think it's catching on. I'm seeing more and more platforms. Like I was watching a platform with Alex Collier, who's been like from the 90s, talking about the Andromedans and just different things. And then there was a couple of other people that I recognize their names. And then there was Jenny Jablowski, who's been on the show a few times, and she was on fire. But the things they were talking about were the things we talk about. So there was a blend of like disclosure, conspiracy, truther kind of thing with Starseed. It was all like, it was kind of cool listening to everybody's different perspectives, all saying the same thing and recognizing the same thing, what we're doing here and who we are.
Absolutely.
So let me officially welcome you, Sarah Jane Patton, to SoulSpeaks 5D. Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us.
I'm so grateful to share space with you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I believe I get a lot of messages, and I don't have the memory I used to have, but I believe part of what you bring to the table has to do with children.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of just introduce myself, like what it is I do, and kind of give you a little backstory on. That's where you're going, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would love to hear about that. But before we hear about that, let's hear about you. Have you always been this weird? Or did you have a wake-up experience?
I did have a wake-up experience. However, in retrospect, I can see where it's been playing out my whole life, right? And I think that's the story of many of us. So I'm an intuitive guide and a psychic medium, a card reader. I'm a published author. I've worn many hats. I did a lot of things, and I've kind of been all over the place. I come from a big family where just the typical, just going through the stuff, going through motions, whatever, experiencing things. And so in 2019, I'd been doing personal development work since 2005. And in 2019, I got really consistent and intentional with it. And it was in a class that I did. It's called the first class, actually. It's kind of stems from some of the teachings from Jose Silva, going back to that, those teachings.
Oh, really?
And there's an experience in the class that's called case working. And it's basically Mediumship 101, where we discover that, we all have this gift. We all have this ability to connect. And it's like figuring out and learning that your intuition is like a muscle that you have to exercise it, right? And practice it and strengthen it. And so that's kind of where it started. That was where the seed was really planted. I always had a fascination with mediums or knowing things before they happened. And then I was looking back and I was like, wait a minute, I think I have this, or I've been doing this. I didn't know it. And my friends would say stuff to me like, why do you remember these things? Or why do you know this? Or why do you know what I was wearing the day that I met you 22 years ago? I don't know. Well, now it all makes sense because I just have this innate knowing. I remember things, they stick with me. And so after I took that class, that was in 2019, that's when it started. Then in 2020, I had my daughter, I was tucking her into bed one night, and it was a Monday, actually. She was 2.5, and she was always different. Like when Camille was born in 2017, she was just a different child. And let me tell you, I get to say that because I have 6 kids. Okay. I gave birth to 6 children, and she was my little surprise child. Like there's a 20-year age gap between her and my oldest child. So here's this child that came out of nowhere. I was not planning to have her. She was not in my personal plan, but she was making her way here. So 2.5, she could have full conversations with you. I took her into bed, and she starts to tell me about Sky Robot. And I'm like, who is Sky Robot? And she's like, Sky Robot says this is his room. Sky Robot says these are his toys. And so each night for a solid 5 nights in a row, so started on Monday, went to Friday, she would tell me more about Sky Robot. Well, the home that I live in, that we had purchased 1.5 years before this, they had a son that passed away here, and his name was Robert, and she was calling him Robot, which is very close to Robert. And so each night, like, she just was telling me more information. And so I knew the family. And so I have always had a different experience or perspective on death than I would probably say most of my family or my circle of friends. And so moving here, knowing that he had passed here didn't bother me. I wasn't affected by that at all. However, I was very interested in knowing more as my daughter began to talk about him. I knew it was him. And so at the time I was working with an intuitive coach, and she referred me to someone else. And so I got on a call with this woman who was a psychic medium, and she was like, oh, hey, by the way, this is probably when you're about to crack open. And that's exactly what happened. So I cracked wide open, and then the rest of my children did as well. So all 6 of my kids are wide open.
Whoa.
There's a lot of energy going on around here.
In St. Louis, Missouri, of all places.
Yeah.
So this is pretty recent too, really. Like,
it is recent, right? So this isn't like, actually, if I go back, so it's interesting we talk about this, right? Because I think about my oldest daughter. So I had her 4 days before I turned 18. I was a teen mom. And when she was 2, my grandfather passed away. And I remember standing in the kitchen with her one day, and she was just having a conversation by herself. And I asked her, I was like, hey, Allie, I said, who are you talking to? And she goes, Papa Clyde, you don't see him? He's right there. And then I was like, nope, I don't, but okay. And then later she said, she was having another conversation. I go, hey, who are you talking to? And she's like, God. You don't see God? God's right there. And I was like, okay. So she would tell me different things. She was talking to different people, but I was such a young mom at the time. I didn't ever tell her that she was wrong, but I also probably just dismissed it because I didn't know any better. And as we evolve, right? And I grew up, I kind of grew up with her, right? And then I had more kids. And by the time I had this 6th one and she showed up, I was like, hold on a minute, there's got to be more to this. Let me just investigate this a little bit further. And honestly, from the moment that she said Sky Robot to this current moment right now, it's been an incredible, amazing journey, because it has cracked me open on a level that I never imagined. And now I channel the Children of Light and have an entire cosmic team from the Children of Light that I work with consistently and regularly. And I just keep getting more and more information. And I was really guided. Someone actually said, like, you need to connect with Todd. You have to share this information because it's time for you to share it with the world.
right on. Right on to that. So I have so many questions, such as, what do y'all talk about at the dinner table?
I got a great answer for that one. Well, sometimes we have the table set for a person in spirit. So that's one thing that Camille will do. Oftentimes, so I do private sessions with individuals and for intuitive guidance and psychic mediumship connections. And so if Camille is at the home, because most of my work is done remotely, I do have some in-person, clients locally to St. Louis, but most of my work is done online. And if I'm doing a session, typically within 24 to 48 hours, if she's home at the time of the reading, she will come to me with something to validate that she has been aware of this session or whoever transitioned or whoever I was connecting with. So the first time it happened was, gosh, maybe it's been over a year, I believe, or right at a year ago. I was doing a session with a woman. We were just having a conversation. We're connecting with her son who had passed away. And the next day, Camille kept telling me, like every time we would sit down to eat, she would have this place set and she would tell me that was for Jack. And so I would be like, who's Jack? Camille? And it wasn't clicking for me. And so she would set a place at the table for him. No matter where she was at, she would play with him. She'd be in a room hanging out with him. Jack was here for several days. And so I finally looked at her one day and I was like, Camille, what does Jack look like? And she says, Mommy, he's the most handsomest boy in the sky. And it was just the right information that I needed to connect the dots. And I knew it was a reading I had just done for this woman. Her son was 23 and he was a very good looking, handsome young fella. So she was hanging out with Jack. I also have a niece that passed away 22 years ago in April. It'll be 22 years. And she was an infant. She was full term stillborn, but she was a baby. Like I was there for the whole experience. And Camille plays with my niece, her cousin. She will talk about playing with Kayla, or my friend that has a daughter that's passed away, Ava, or my dad's twin brother that passed away. She calls him Snowflake. So dinner conversations around here often include those that have transitioned and aren't here in the physical anymore.
So we were talking about this in the last 10 days, I think, on a show. And we were talking about mediumship. And also I have to say, either I'm having a deja vu or the first part of this conversation we had before, or someone, maybe it was the same show I'm thinking about. Because it started out with Silva Mind Control.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the first books I ever looked into. And you never hear anything bad about it. The people that have dipped into it, there's a lot of good information in that. I just, but yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I just have to tell you this because this happened as I was coming in. So the way I work, I don't prepare for these things. I've tried that for years and years. I've been a speaker for a while. I don't even prepare for my talks, like literally like 15 to 30 minutes prior to meeting with someone, I'll jot some notes down, but more of it just trusting and channeling what comes through. I was guided to pull some cards for our call. And I was like, why am I pulling cards? Like, what am I doing? And I just trust it, right? These two cards flew out of the deck and I just have to show them to you because you can't make this up, not even if you wanted to. So I pulled from, let's see, it's called the Starseed deck by Rebecca Campbell. This is what the front of it looks like here. And I'll come back and tell you why why specifically this deck. And so I'm shuffling the deck and two cards fly out. And the first one is the Golden Child. So you can't make this up. The Golden Child, inner child, tenderness, innocence, and rare gifts. The second card that flew out is the Blue Flame, spontaneous awakening, activation, and integration time. So these are oracle cards, a little different than tarot. However, the important part of it that the significance to it is my daughter guides me on what decks to use. And this is one of them. There's 3 decks in particular that she's very adamant about us using right now. And she talks about, now Camille's 5 now, so she'll say, hey, Mom, you have to use this deck because it's important for the earth. So this is the Starseed Oracle. The other one I have is the Work Your Light Oracle. And then the other one is Beyond Lumeria. And I just find it incredibly fascinating that I have like 20 decks, like that she picks these 3 and says, these are the ones to use. I find that very interesting.
Wow, that's trippy. I like those 2 cards too.
Well, you can make it up. Like what we're talking about children, I pull the Golden Child, like what?
Well, and that show that I think I'm remembering, either that or we're having a Mandela effect or something. We started talking about mediumship. And we started talking about the person I was talking to was a woman. And she just talked about how she came into that. And I just reflected on some early days where I was involved with it, like when I first woke up. And we started talking about the differences between mediumship and there's another plane. You know, we were talking like, is mediumship in the astrals? And then there's that other thing that we all connect to as well. You know, you could call it galactic, angelic. I don't know, you know, higher dimensions.
Yeah.
Do you, does that resonate with you? I mean, do you see that as two different fields? Because like you have a lot of energy at your house. I mean, you have people that are out of their body still hanging out with you, and everybody's in on it. But I would think that same type of field could easily hold galactics, elementals, you know, I mean, stuff like that.
So I think this is a really fascinating question that I don't have a direct answer for, because I'm not quite clear myself, to be honest. I'm super curious about it. I have different ideas of what it could be. And I think that it's kind of the unknown, right? And just trusting like whatever it is. I'm not, to be honest, Todd, I don't really know. I can't really differentiate or decipher through what it is. I'm
Right.
clear. I'm clear that it's accurate. I'm clear that it's happening. I'm clear
Absolutely.
that I'm clear that my experience. But as far
especially when you have two or more involved, I mean, it's real.
When you get me and then my oldest and my youngest, the three of us together energetically, the things that we will channel together, we've started recording them. So my daughter's 20, my oldest is 25 now. And then I have this little 5-year-old unicorn child, and we will get together because Camille likes to do story time. She likes to come in. This is my, this room I'm in right now. I call it my little Zen room. It's my kind of my office. It's my everything. It's a sunroom, but I have an altar set up in here, and she likes to light candles, turn the lights down, and then she calls it story time. Well, story time for Camille is channeling time. So she will just start channeling stuff and telling us things. In fact, she was just telling us a couple days ago about, what did she tell me? She said that there's a money gun, because now remember, she's telling it in 5-year-old terms. So you have to, decipher through what she's saying, but she's like, there's a money gun and they're shooting it and there's lots of money coming out. Everyone has lots of money, and something about buying a new home. And then she says that, but there's a shadow. And then she got down on the floor and started moving. And then she was like, there's a shadow and they have to get rid of the shadow first. Once we get rid of the shadow, they will shoot off the money gun. Like, wow. Okay, Camille.
Now, is she aware of what she's saying? Like, once she goes through it, so does she even talk? Does she even think about it again?
I think it's just second nature for her to just express it. However, I do think that she knows at some degree. I have a whole list of things that she talks about. The latest one are portals. That's been a topic of discussion, which it's making me have to go research, because there's like things that she will talk about where I might know something on like surface level, but the way that I experience Camille is if she's speaking to me about it, that is my indicator that I need to learn about it, or I need to know more about it, or I need to go searching to get accurate.
It's like living with an oracle.
She is an oracle. Let me be clear.
Well,
it's a live oracle all the time. Yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like that show I was telling you about that, those 4 people were on, they were talking about the children, and they were saying how the children are so high frequency that above all else that they bring that frequency itself for us to align to, which is exactly what you just said in your personal relationship with your daughter.
Yep. I made a list of things. I made a TikTok about this a couple of weeks ago on how to know if your child is a child of light, and called out 10 different distinct things that will indicate if they are. And one of them, the last one that I talk about, is they're just happy children. Like they walk into any room and everyone loves them. They light up any room they walk into. And that's my experience of her. Doesn't matter where Camille goes, like whether it's at school, whether it's here, whether it's anywhere in public, people are drawn to her, or any child of light. People are drawn to them naturally and attracted to them because their light shines so bright and their frequency of love is so high that we naturally are drawn and want to be with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's more and more of them coming. And that
Yes.
language, you know how sometimes even like before we woke up and you
Yeah.
would just be in a situation, a family situation, it might be a little chaotic, which can happen when you have a bunch of kids around, whatever. And then a kid will just say something just out of the blue and bring everything into perspective, like just snap.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I
true.
mean? But it's like this is the new version, the newest and best version of it. You can't, in other words, you can't avoid it. You can't help but just fall into it. So there'll be more and more of that going on, no matter what perceived darkness or whatever is out there. We got to remember it's not just us out here anymore. There's a bunch of
100%.
there's a bunch of yeah, there's a bunch of souls out there that don't, that speak in the way your daughter speaks. They're seeing images, they're getting
Yes.
messages, and pretty soon they'll be able to, I mean, to verbalize everything, but their energy without the verbalizations, comforting.
Just their physical presence is comforting. Yes.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
comforting for me. It's like comforting at this point in this transition we call ascension.
Yes. So I'll share some of the things. I made some notes here, just share with you just some stories that she's told me, because I think they're super important. So the recent thing has been about the portals. So I did a session. I had actually a good friend of mine that passed away last May and did a session with her husband. We were friends for 25 years. And I'm in the session with her husband, and he discloses to me that she had these gifts as well. And I have to be honest with you, it was a moment for me where I experienced a lot of grief in his expression of this to me, because how could I be friends with someone for 25 years, not know that she had this gift? And here I am walking around with it too. And for the last several years, we could have been sharing this together, but it's often a taboo subject where people don't talk about their gifts or their experiences for fear of being wrong, or people thinking and it's too woo-woo or not believed, like whatever that is. And so I come to find out that she had this, but no support or anyone to help her. And he then informed me that she could see portals that they had in their backyard. So sure enough, do I get done with this session, and within, Camille had gone with me to their house. And so she was on the other side of the house when that conversation was happening, but we got home, and within 5 minutes of being home, she brings me a picture. And so she had colored like an oval circle, and then in the center of it colored it rainbow. So that was filled completely of rainbow color, and then a circle on the top of it. And she shaded that a light blue, and she brought it to me and she said, okay, so this is the bubble, and you get inside the bubble, and then you can travel through the portal, and then you go, and this is the portal. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Okay. Let's see. Go ahead.
How does your I mean, you have 6 kids.
Yes.
Are you with a partner?
So I am currently married to her dad. Yes.
Okay. So is he like Darren on Bewitched? Is he like is he like the astronaut in I Dream of Jeannie? I mean,
well,
because I mean, he's got all these, because I've run into several situations over the years on the show where something very similar, only a couple to this extent, but I can't imagine, because you think of the masculine, you think of the feminine in the overall household, but obviously from the man and the woman in this case, where he's is he like the really quiet one?
he is quiet. He is quiet.
Yeah.
This is actually, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm very transparent. Listen, I'm as transparent as they come. This has been a struggle for us in our relationship, because I've gone through the awakening process and he is not. And so it becomes really difficult in relationships when one partner has gone through it and another hasn't. First of all, we know that when we awaken, it can be messy. It's not always sunshine and rainbows when it's happening. And that's been my experience. It's been kind of a messy, but oh my gosh, like so worth it, and completely grateful for it. And he definitely has not experienced it. I will say this though, his mom passed away at the end of 2020, and she was kind of a catalyst into this experience as well. Camille was connected to her very much. I was connected to her. Once I began channeling, I was able to channel her immediately. So there's some things I've shared with him about his mom that he knows there's no way I could know, or that even Camille and the stuff she's shared. So he does believe in it to some degree and capacity, but he's not able to truly grasp it or comprehend it to the extent that I can, or that someone like you could that's awake. But it's been interesting nonetheless. And we're a blended family. So together, we just have we just have Camille. So I have 5 kids with my ex-husband, and then he has 2 kids. He has 2 children with his ex. And then we have Camille together. We call her the love child because she kind of unified the family, brought all the kids together. But I remember I've been with him for 9 years. So I was with him when his daughter was 4. And when I was dealing with Camille and coming into all these knowings, I would go back and think about my other kids, including her, my stepdaughter, Bella. So she used to have these imaginary friends that I now realize were not imaginary friends. They were like spirit guides or people hanging out with her too. And I think that's true for most kids that are talking about imaginary friends.
True. Yeah, absolutely. It was for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anyone that it wasn't the truth. Those were the same ones that are here now. Yeah, that we're getting.
And the children are so open. They really are. I would say that 2 to 5 is like such an important time, because that 2 to 5-year-old space, when they're starting to come into these things, you can shut it down, or you can get curious and be playful and explore it with them. And when it gets shut down, once they've been told no enough times, or they're not believed, it will just cut it off. And then once they go to school, right? Because even this year, Camille went to school, and, Camille remembers past lives that we've had together. She talks about how she used to be my mom, and that when she was my mom and I was her daughter, my name was Aurora. And so that one I went looking into, which is super interesting, because you go back to the Greek goddess of Aurora, and her brother and sister were Luna and Sol, and Aurora was the bringer of light. And there's just a lot of parallels, and it's, Greek mythology. And guess what? I live in Troy.
Encoding. It's that hardcore synchronicity. It's that encoding.
Yeah. So when she goes to school and she tells her friends, like, hey, I used to be my mom's mom. Well, the kids are like, that's not possible. Even my nieces, like, that are the same age as her, they're like, Camille, that's not possible. And I always, like, her and I have conversations every day. I'm always like, Camille, there are going to be people that may not believe you, but your truth is your truth, and never stop believing yourself. Always stand in your truth. We also do, I put her in protection every day. We do a light exercise as we drive to school every day, just because I know that her energetic field is so open that keeping her protected is super important.
Do the teachers ever say anything to you?
I mean, they do. I'm sure they think we're a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because they don't get it. But, even the teachers, though, I always say, I even say the teachers know way more than they think they do, because some of the stuff that Camille comes home with, I'm like, they're the teachers that are with these kids every day, and they chose that, they have to be some type of starseed light worker to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah, there's got to be some truth to that.
So even if they are bringing up projects about with these kids, not realizing it's all coming through their subconscious mind.
So, like, is there like a pattern or a theme or a rhyme to the reason, so to speak? Like, if you look at everything she's pulling in, everything that you're pulling in, that everything you're collaborating on together. And then you mentioned this, this access point, the children of the light. It seems like it's related to that in some way. Y'all are anchoring that in some way. Yes. Can you tell us about that?
So this is a great question. So, I guess it was like, I just asked. So that's how I start. Like, I'll just ask spirit, like, hey, show me, lead me, guide me, bring me to these, answers so I can understand, and things will just pop in. One thing that I've noticed, and I came to this realization not that long ago, is for some reason, my network of people that I know is incredibly large. And as a result of that, like, I know a lot of people that have lost people, like an excessive amount, like more than normal. And this is pre 2020. So I've always had something with that there and not understanding. And a couple of days ago, a young man that passed away when I was in high school came through, and he wanted to speak to me, to someone else, like another person that we went to school with. And so contacted her because she's been my best friend for 26 years. And I was like, hey, Chad has a message for you. And so I start channeling all this information, and he talks to me. Through the message to her, I have to go back and read it because I won't remember it when I'm channeling it. So I go back and I read this message, and he says, I'm part of the Children of Light. I have been with you since I passed in 1996. We've been waiting for this time. We're here to help elevate the consciousness of the collective. We are here to anchor the light. And then he guided me to something else, which really blew my mind. It's a song by White Lion. Oh gosh. Now I can't think of the name of it, but it talks about what's going on. You should definitely look it up. I'm going to look up the name of it just because it's super important and relevant to this. But when I read the lyrics to the song, it talks about when the children sing, the new world will begin. And it talks about no more president, no more suffering. And I was mind blown because now my ears ringing. So that's always a validation that this is true. They're coming through. But I was mind blown by it because it was out of nowhere that he tells me to do this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now I have this understanding of why I've known all these people that have passed away, why I'm connected to them. I have this massive team, and that I am here to help anchor this light with the physical. Like those of us that are in the physical. So that's what I was shown through this was, hey, you need to start talking about this and getting it out there so that those that are here in the physical can rally together so we can raise our vibration and our frequency. He then showed me and told me, he said, if you go back to how children show up in the world, what do they have? The two things that every child has before they're programmed, before they've learned outside of their knowing, the two things they always have is forgiveness. You could do anything to a child and they will forgive you no matter what. The other thing they have is unconditional love. And he just kept saying, go back to being a child, go back to the inner child. How do children show up? So to create the universal unconditional love, we have to look at how the children show up in the world and think about how we can show up in the world being childlike.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, your story, your family story, it lends to everybody coming out with what they're getting, what they're experiencing, what their gifts are, right? I mean, people talk about soul tribe, finding your soul tribe. It's almost like it's an origination point. Like we've all been pulling stuff in, and now there's starting to be some collaboration, be it living in the same house or virtually, etherically, all of the above, whatever. And from that soul tribe story is coming out, that part of the puzzle. And if you look at it in the landscape of this transition we call Ascension, they all have the same goal, and that is to wake the world up. And like through this avenue, it's the children of light with, it sounds like vibration, resonance, sound, song, illumination. And like you said, you're anchoring it in. And there might be 11 other families like yours around the world doing the same thing.
I believe that is true, 1,000,000%. And the other thing that I was shown is that these children are actually here to wake up the parents. And they're part of especially to the mom, there's a connection that the mother has with the child. And so, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen with dads, because it absolutely can, but there is something significant about the mother-child relationship and the child cracking the mother open, and then having the other children open as well, or seeing that maybe some of it was there and it wasn't noticed, and then suddenly it becomes like like so much in your awareness that you can't ignore it, which is what happened with me. I was like, oh, this is just all right here. What is going on? And I'll say this too, my older children. So I have daughters that are all in their 20s, 21, 23, 25. I have a son that's 18, the four of them. And they have a different dad than Camille does, but the four of them, they were awake before I was, and I didn't know that they were awake because I wasn't awake.
Did they know they were awake?
Oh, yes.
Really? All four of them?
Yes.
Wow.
And so when I came into my awakening through Camille, and I would go to them and they would be like, Mom, check this out. Mom, we've been telling you this. Or they were showing me things for a while. And it was like, I dismissed it, or I might've looked at it for a moment and said, that's interesting. I never gave it attention or really focused on it. It wasn't until this experience with Sky Robot came through that really pushed me to say, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then I became curious and started exploring it. And it's just, I'm telling you what, never in a million years did I ever think I would be sitting here telling anyone that I'm a psychic medium or intuitive guide. So to be here today, from all the other things I've done over the last 20 years of my life, I didn't think it would be this, but I'm super grateful because I've never felt more aligned ever in my work and what I'm doing, and very clear on my purpose. That became incredibly clear to me. And so I know that my purpose really is to shine my light, to spread the message, to amp up these children of light, because what I keep being shown is when the frequency and the vibration gets high enough, we will ascend. That's what I keep seeing. And what I love about this is the things that I see, and I know when you were asking if there was any rhyme or reason to it, the things that I keep seeing and the things that I keep knowing, Camille comes in and validates for me.
Right.
So one of the things that she told me, this was probably 3 to 4 months ago. So when most kids were talking about Christmas, she could not stop talking about Easter. She kept asking me about Easter. And I'm like, what? And I was like, where's this coming from? And so, I grew up Catholic. I was never consistent with church when I was a child. I definitely didn't read the Bible, but I was guided to go read some things about Revelations. And I was looking some things up and stuff that she was saying to me. And I was like, wait, whoa. And so one of the stories that she told me is, she said, and I'll tell you the story and then I'll interpret it to you from my perspective. And maybe you even have more to add to it, because I always get interested in hearing other people's perspectives of how they interpret her stories. So I go to tuck her in. That's when a lot of these conversations happen at our bedtime. And she says, Mommy, did you know that there's good angels and there's bad angels? And she said, the bad angels have red hair and black hair, and the good angels have white hair, gold hair, and rainbow hair. And she said that what did she say? The good angels, they're doing math. And I thought that was really interesting because she's only 5 and she's in pre-K. She's not even kindergarten yet. So I'm like, they're doing math. So to me, I think of sacred geometry. And then I think of the grid lines. That's what came into my mind when she talked about doing math. And then she said, and the bad angels, they're taking all the toys. They're taking them all. They don't want anybody to have them. And I was like, okay. And then she said, the bad angels, they do not like the light. And she says, it's going to get dark for a minute, but it will be okay because the good angels will bring all the light back.
Bam. Bam.
You can't make this up if you wanted
to. One of the cool things about it is, I know there's a lot of people that do that for each other, like validate, their personal intel. My wife's got sisters all over the place, and that's one of the things in their network is, where they'll feel something, call their friends, and they're like, yeah, I got that too, Yep. But you're living, first of all, you're living with the person, and second of all, it's by linear standards, it's a child.
Yeah,
and that's powerful. Now, how vocal, how out there are you with your expressions and your inspirations and your communion with the children of light? And are any of your daughters or children or whatever involved with you?
Great question. So I'm very vocal. I have a Facebook group called New Earth Quantum Healing for New Earth Living, Quantum Healing for New Earth Living. So I began speaking about the children of light in there. I also talk about it on my TikTok platform because I know that there's other parents waiting. When I do sessions with people, I definitely can always tell if they have a child of light or if they're connected to one. Sometimes they have children in spirit, so I can connect with them that are outside of this realm, right? In the non-physical. And I would say that this has probably like been the biggest push for me to get out and share my voice. Also interesting because I did pull a card today for myself and it was share your voice.
It's funny how those things happen. They
It
always
is.
happen.
Those are validations too. But the person, her name is Amy. She's somebody that you're friends with on Facebook. Her and I got in a conversation. We both follow Ramona Lappin because I resonate with a lot of what Ramona talks about. And Amy is local to Missouri. She lives in Kansas City, I believe. So she wasn't too far from me. And so she was like, hey, I heard you talking about the children of light on one of Ramona's calls. You've got to talk to Todd. You got to go get your voice out there. So this is kind of my like, hey, I'm out here now. I'm not hiding behind this at all. And let's talk.
That's awesome. That's what it's all about. I think that's the most important function we can do. And there's levels to everything, but there's a real, I was saying it like since September, the people that were coming on, regardless of how much they'd been out there or not been out there, first time, 10th time, there was a humility and a humanness that was coming through. And I think it was through that fire that the last half of last year was that purging of the ego deaths, as Sandra Walter said in a post a couple of days ago for the year 2022. But yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point where that's kind of evolved and transformed into a spiritual confidence, courage. I mean, there's a lot of words, the wisdom, the conduit that it is, the humility that's starting to come around. Yeah. And I'm sure those kids have got something to do with it.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, so, that's the name of the game. Everybody get their code out there.
To answer the second part of your question, you asked if my other kids were involved. So that's a great question. They're all super connected to Camille for sure. So they definitely have conversations with her. My oldest daughter is a Reiki master, and she is in massage therapy school right now. She's super connected to Camille. And as far as the children of light go, she's pretty good at being able to notice when they show up. They are attracted to her very much. So she kind of nannies for some people, and she tells me stories all the time about their kids and how they are also children of light. And I'm always like, yes, you're 100% right. Then my second daughter, she's 23, so she's kind of in a little different space than the others. However, I will have to say, like, I'm always fascinated by her. She did a lot of the personal development work with me, like side by side, back in 2019, 2020, when she was in her late teens coming into her 20s.
That's just mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing.
She decided, now listen to this, she decided that she wanted to go into law enforcement and take her work into law enforcement. So she worked at a maximum security men's state prison for about 3 years. And let me just tell you, as mother, scariest thing ever. However, she would come home with stories for me. And I asked her, I was like, Abby, why are you doing this? And she said, because I want these people to know they matter. I want them to know that there is someone that cares about them. And I'm like, this is a massive risk for you to take with your life. You're a female in a men's prison. You're an attractive female. Like, this scares your mother. And she's just like, yep, I'm going for it. So now she works at a county jail doing the same thing. But it was interesting when she moved over from the prison to the county jail, she had the respect of the inmates instantly. And they asked her, they said, how did you get respect from these people so quickly? And she's now like, I think she's a sergeant. So she has people that work under her, that report to her. Wow. And she said to them, she goes, you guys, it's very simple. It's not anything that you learned in the academy. It's not anything that you learned anywhere else. I'm going to tell this to you and you'll never forget it because it's literally the easiest thing. She said, just treat them like they matter.
Right.
That's all you have to do.
Right.
Let them know that you care, that they're a human, not an inmate.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
huge. So
Yeah.
my third daughter, her and her girlfriend are kind of nomads. They kind of live off grid, doing their own thing. And Katie has been adopted into a Native American tribe. She's been studying to do ceremonies. So that's what she's doing. She wants to create an off-grid community. She's working on that. My son, he just graduated high school last year. And I have to say to you, like, this is where I know, like, my kids are there. I have unconventional children. They're just not conventional in any way. So he came to me and wanted to drop out of high school. And this was after he had been sent home because of close contact during the COVID whole deal that was going on at school and his experience with that. And he was sent home, and he struggled because he's like, they think I'm a new student. They had sent him home like 45 days of school he had missed from like close contact. He never even had it, but kept sending him home, and he just struggled with it socially. He's like, I want to drop out. And I was like, and I literally like instantly, it was an instant reaction. It was not a response. I reacted. I was like, oh no, you're not dropping out. I was like, I was 17 when I got pregnant with your sister and I dropped out of high school, and you're not doing that. And he just very calmly sat there and listened to me. And then he said, with all due respect, Mom, I love you, but that's your story, not mine. And I was like, whose kid is this? Where did he come from? Get him out of here. And I was like, okay, now you got my attention. I'm listening to you, son. So he gave me a whole plan, what he was going to do. By the time he got done telling me, I couldn't deny like what he was saying. And I was like, all right, like, you think you're old enough to figure this out and you've got a plan. I'm supporting you in this. So we go through this whole process for him to drop out. He's going to get his GED a week before his senior year starts, right before he's supposed to take this GED class or test to be graduated. He says, I have to go back to school. And I said, what are you talking about? He's like, I have to go back to school. If I don't go back to school, my friends aren't going to graduate. I'm like, well, okay. So my son went back to school. Now, this is the kid that his friends would come in and he would be meditating in the living room. And I would ask him, like, they'll be making fun of him. Oh, Brian's meditating. Oh, Brian's this, and I would say, hey, Brian, does this bother you that your friends make fun of you because you meditate? He's like, no, they just don't get it. But if they keep watching me, they might understand. And I'm like, okay, like, he wasn't even fazed by it. So now here he is going back to school, and he didn't even make it, like, I don't think he started in August. And the way that the school works, once you have your credits, you're done. It was alternative high school. So once your credits are there, they let you go because they want to get the next kid in so they can get him graduated. So he finished early. He finished even before like the end of December. It was like December 5th or something he was done. He still had 3 friends that had to keep going to school. And so I was like, what are you going to do about your friends? Because they won't let you go anymore. He's like, I know, I'm going to call them every day. My son called his friends every day. If they didn't go to school, if they didn't wake up or they weren't ready to go, he would get up and drive over to their house, wake them up, put them in his car and drive them. And all 4 of those boys graduated the following May. So he wouldn't do that if he didn't have some type of, care for humanity, because that's not typical of an 18-year-old boy to just be like that with his friends, 17, really, at the time he was 17. So I always feel like my 17-year-old son, the way I experience him, it's almost as if he shows up as his higher self all the time. Like, he's just always up here as his higher self, and he's waiting for the rest of us to catch up.
Wow. Man, you should do a reality show.
Listen, we've talked about it.
You should just put cameras up all over the house.
I'm like, we just put these cameras up everywhere. We just play them and stream them all the time.
And so in that whole atmosphere, do you tend to, or does she tend to, or any of y'all get like collective information? I mean, I know you said earlier, which was, you could be taken like metaphorically. I guess we have to take it all metaphorically. So energetically, but do you get like things like premonitions or forecasts, this is what's coming, or you feel something coming, whether it's a day or two ahead of time or a month or two?
Yes, absolutely. We're super connected. And even I could go maybe even a step further and say that we kind of experience on some level, it's telepathy. Mm-hmm. Where we are telepathically communicating, or it's coming into our awareness and we're having the thoughts and we're both thinking it, and the messages are being sent back and forth. I was witnessing it between Allie and Katie on just Monday evening in here. They were both here, and I got one in one room and one in another, and she's saying this and she's saying this. And I'm like, you guys are saying the same things.
Mm.
So yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this too. This is my experience of it, and it's different for everyone perhaps, but for me, the shock factor never goes away. I'm always blown away by it. And on some level, I like that. And the reason that I like it and the reason why I feel the way I do is because it's always my validation of my connection to source and to spirit. And so there's no greater feeling than being validated in that manner to our connection to the divine. Like, what?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff for everything that's happened. There's a lot of things coming into alignment. You can feel it. Like it's I don't want to say it. No, I don't want to say it was ever a fight, but I know we all had to fight. And I mean, dark nights of the soul, whatever, 6 kids, whatever.
Yeah.
But it does feel like there's a level of alignment you can feel it, like it's kicked in, like somebody's kicked a gear in or something. Regardless of the way the energies might fluctuate in the present moment.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Camille did tell me, I think this was last week. She came home from school. They had a week of rocket ships, something with rocket ships. I'm not quite sure, but she asked me to draw her one. And I did. And then she colored it. Next thing I know, she's hanging it on her wall next to her bed. And I said, Camille, what's up with this rocket ship? And she goes, well, that's for when I want to travel. And I said, okay. And she goes, did you know that we're leaving this planet and we're going to a new one? I said, are
5
we?
years old.
I said, are we? I said, tell me more about it. She goes, oh, the new planet, you're going to love it. It's amazing. Oh, tell me more, Camille. She's like, all the children are there. They're all singing. I can't wait to get there. You're going to be so excited, mommy. You're going to love it. You're right. You're right, honey. I am going to be excited. I can't wait to go. I'm trying to see what else I have that I could tell you that she's told me, because I'm telling you the stuff that she talks about.
Oh, I think it's the whole story itself, to me, is the biggest thing about it. Like, on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's such a concentrated group of people, and you hear more and more about this. Are you, because somebody in the audience, I was looking on the Facebook earlier, mentioned from their own experience, familiarity in connection with the children of light, as well as somebody that you mentioned, I think. So, I mean, like, there must be other people. Are you planning on kind of like reaching out or trying to connect or build on that?
Yes, because I keep telling myself I cannot be the only one that is channeling these children of light. There's got to be some other people. Like you just said, there could be 11 other Sarah Janes in the world that are doing this, right? So I am looking for them. I do want to bring them together because I do feel like there is more for me to do. I'm not even clear what it is. I trust that spirit will guide me in that and will lead me to the people. I've been asking for my people to be brought to me. And they just keep showing up, because like you showed up. I can't tell you, the most amazing, incredible people just keep showing up that I've been working with. And I feel like it's just all I trust it all come together. But yes, I am actively looking for them, because I'm not sure what we're supposed to do, but we're supposed to do something.
Well, yeah, you should talk to your clan and see who wants to come on.
Yeah.
Even the little one. If you want to come on with the little one, that'd be cool.
Oh my gosh.
It was a pleasure though, doing this today. And it was like a breath of fresh air.
The one thing I do want to mention this, because she does talk about this, because I think I want to say this specifically because I think there's a lot of people who are listening that may resonate with. She talks about crossing the rainbow bridge, which I am clear about as well. Like, I've been seeing the rainbow bridge for a while. However, what came to me was, and I need to do the research to kind of see where this came from, but there's this term that is used when a woman loses a child and then she has another child after the loss. They call them rainbow babies.
Wow.
And this came through to me in a channeling a couple of months ago where I was like, wait, this is very significant because there's a reason that they're rainbow, they call them rainbow babies. And that is what I believe is because the child that transitioned and that's in the spirit world, whatever the other realm is, whatever we want to call it, that we're not clear on, is there to help connect with the child that then comes in. So I'm seeing them connect. So you will see babies specifically will look off as if there's no, like you won't physically see anyone there, but you will think that they are looking at somebody, something, communicating, laughing, giggling, babbling at them. And I do believe that these infants are connecting with these transitioned loved ones, whoever they are, or even the other children that have passed that were related to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a friend, Amanda Bloodworth. She lives in Blanco, Texas, and she lives on some, I don't know, an acre, a good sized lot out in the country. And she has a 4-year-old or 5-year-old daughter. And she has that kind of relationship that you do. And her daughter's always talking about the rainbow people.
Yeah.
And the rainbow this and the rainbow that. And I believe her daughter also talked about the Rainbow Bridge. And there might have been 1 or 2 others in the last year or so. So yeah, there's definitely something to it. I mean, listening to all the different stories and everything, it's like you can kind of see the universality of I guess you would say the New Earth grid. Like you can see the lineages, they're just huge. The number, how many, it's infinity almost or whatever. But and so I do think that there's some significance to that because, now that you mentioned that part of it, I can clearly remember at least 2 telling me in the last year. And I find it ironic too that Amanda's daughter's essentially the same age as yours.
Well, maybe we should connect.
Yeah. Do that. I'll tell you what, I got to get ready for the next show. But you know what?
Hey, don't you have S.A. Smith on next?
Yeah, she's on in 30
She's
minutes.
amazing.
Yeah. We had her on once before. It was very cool. She's a cool chick.
I was great.
Yeah, she's a cool chick. And you are cool too. And
well, thank you, Todd. Thanks for having me. I'm super grateful to be here. Definitely, let's get me connected to Amanda. And then I would say one of the platforms I'm definitely going to be using to get my voice out there, just to pull them into my other platforms, is TikTok. So if there are people that are looking to see if their children might be a child of light, like they're trying to understand it or what to look for, if they find me on TikTok, they can find I can't talk apparently, the 10 key indicators that they have a child of light on there. So
10 key indicators you have a child of light.
Yeah.
TikTok is probably a really good media for that. I would think.
Get it out there. Yeah. Just to find people to bring the following, because like they're trying to understand. So I just started this. I was guided to do it a few weeks ago. So I just started.
Yeah. Because I don't have a TikTok, but they come up on the YouTubes and the Facebook Reels.
Yep.
And one of the things that's been kind of impressive to me is these young people, and I'm going to say like 15 to 20, and they're talking some real stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're talking some wide open stuff. So yeah, I big props for, going that method. I think that's a really smart way to do it. But look, until the next time, thank you so much for coming in, sharing space with us.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate you having me. It's such an honor and a pleasure. And I would definitely talk to my kids and see if they'd be interested in coming back on.
Yeah, let me know. All
right, Todd. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Okay.